Here and welcome back to a new video. In this one I'm going to be taking a look at several new reveals from the Pokemon set Pokemon Card 151. So as always, currently there is just no date for when this will release in the West. We presume it's going to be some kind of like mini collector's set releasing in the fall potentially, but we honestly can't say when for sure. So if you're planning on testing these cards out, do bear that in mind because it might be a while before we see them in English. But Pokemon have been kind enough to reveal a bunch of them, including the starter EXs from Gen 1, so Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise, as well as a couple of interesting trainer cards. So as we get into the reveals, we've got Bulbasaur over here, which is very cute as always. Ivysaur, nothing much going on, but very cute. Then we get to the main talking point of the grass types, I guess, is Venusaur EX. 340 HP is an awful lot to have. It's like up there with Skeletor EX, which is another really beefy Pokemon. So 340 really is the height of EX HP right now. And this is a 2-prizer, so that's something really worth bearing in mind. It's a lot of HP for Pokemon that only gives up 2 prize cards. And we also have to factor in this ability, Soothing Bloom, when talking about its HP, because the ability says, once your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. So there's actually some kind of stall, block, wall kind of capabilities of this Venusaur, as opposed to just relying on the attack. So even though setting up a stage 2 is probably just way too slow and inconsistent for a wall stall deck, healing 60 is a sizable amount of damage to be healing every single turn, especially in combination with cards like Cook, as well as, Lucky Ice Pop and all the rest of it. So do bear that in mind, because if you already have 340 HP, being able to heal 60 is a pretty big deal, to be honest. So, a very cool ability. And then we look at the attack here, Potent Whip. For 2 grass and a colorless, does 150, and then it leaves your opponents active, poisoned, and confused. So the confusion is really nice because it just means your opponent will have to switch out every time they want to attack again, assuming you're probably knocking out anything that wants to evolve anyway, as long as they're not a V going into a V star. So it's pretty respectable. Also the 150 plus 10 from the poison, so this is technically 160. Then assuming they don't switch out, it's going to carry back, back into your turn after they pass theirs. So they should take another 10 damage, taking it to 170, and then you can hit them again for 150. Poison does another 10. So you can get consistent 2-hit KOs with Potent Whip, but that's the thing. It's 2-hit KOs for 3 energy, which is just really expensive. So you probably have to use Gardenia's Vigor, which is really awkward. But you can use Charm if you really wanted to. You could Charm 3 grass energy onto either Bulbasaur or Ivysaur and then evolve into Venusaur, which might be the best way of doing it, to be honest. The only other alternative is that you play some kind of Hisuian Ligand V-Star deck where you use that V-Star power to search out for the Pokemon in basic energy, and then you start attaching them with Gardenia's Vigor, but yeah, seems like an awkward guy to power up, but very cool because of the ability and high HP, so one to bear in mind. Then we see the Charmander Charmeleon. Nothing crazy going on in terms of gameplay, but the artwork is nice. Then we see Charizard EX. 330 HP, so not quite at the cap, but still very high. Has 2 attacks, Resolute Wings and Detonating Vortex. Resolute Wings for 1 fire energy does 60, and if it has any damage counters on it, it does 100 more. So the obvious kind of synergy here is going to be, of course, with Magma Basin. So we use Magma Basin to accelerate fire energy and also place 2 damage counters to one of our benched fire Pokemon, which is pretty decent, to be honest. It means you can consistently 2-hit KO everything. So what you probably want to do is Magma Basin and then Cheryl spam with Pal Pad potentially, which in theory sounds okay. You're setting up stage 2s though, but honestly that might be a better idea than trying to set up Detonating Vortex, which for 4 fire energy does 330 damage and you discard 3 energy from Charizard. So I think what they kind of want you to do with this card is get 4 energy on there, use Detonating Vortex, take a KO, discard 3 energy, and then when the opponent then hits into Charizard EX, you can retaliate with Resolute Wings, while also building up the next Charizard, which I think is what they're going for here, but unfortunately 4 energy is such a steep requirement. There is the single prize Charizard from Pokemon Go, but that's another stage 2 you've got to get into play as well, so yeah, I don't see that working out very well. So yeah, I think Charizard is going to be this Cheryl Palpad deck if it ever becomes a deck, but worth bearing in mind because honestly 160 is a lot of damage, so something worth bearing in mind if you're a fan of Charizard. Then we have Squirtle and Wartortle. Squirtle has the attack withdrawal, which is always nice to have on a low HP evolving basic, so that's cool. Also, this Wartortle might be decent in GLC, to be honest, just being able to retrieve basic water energy, always nice to have. And then we see Blastoise EX. So again, 330, not quite at 340, but still pretty bulky. Has the ability Solid Shell, which I believe is the exact same ability Blastoise GX had. Says this Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks. So you're already a beefcake at 330, and then you're taking 30 less, which is super annoying for decks like Lost Zone, where you have like Cramorant only doing 110 to begin with. So minus 30 is actually a pretty big deal, and it can potentially turn 2-hit KOs into 3-hit KOs, or even in some instances, 3-hit KOs into 4-hit KOs. So yeah, definitely worth paying attention to for that ability, but of course you will get shut off by stuff like Path to the Peak, which you'll have to play around, so Lake Acuity maybe to take even less damage, or perhaps, something like the Arzentown Stadium coming out soon that allow you to set up your Pokemon better, but Solid Shell, very solid ability. Then the attack Twin Cannons for 2 water energy, discard 2 basic water energy cards from your hand. This attack does 140 damage for each card discarded in this way, so a very powerful attack. Obviously, if you discard 2 water energy, you can do 280. So you're 1-hit killing V-Stars, and 1-hit killing most EX Pokemon actually, apart from like other starter EX Pokemon, such as Venusaur. But yeah, very efficient attack for an awful lot of damage. The only problem with this card really is getting the 2 energy on there all the time for your Blastoise. I mean, you can't use Melanese, you have to use like Raihan or something. You could use Baxcalibur, that's a different stage too that you'd have to play in the deck, so this deck is a little bit awkward to set up because if you whiff a manual attachment, it's going to be really bad. But once you get set up, you'll tank any hit because of Solid Shell. So you're always surviving at least 2 turns and you're a 2-prizer anyway. Taking 1-hit KOs seems very favorable, to be honest. Seems very strong. And you can, of course, like boss around Gardevoir stuff, so you can only go after their Gardevoir EX. Maybe you factor in Defiant Bound and Choice Belt to get even higher, to like 1-hit KO Mew VMAX. Honestly, just a very solid EX card overall, I would say. Maybe nothing too broken, but definitely very solid. Then we have an item and a tool card over here. Now I said 2 items because I keep forgetting the tool cards are no longer items. But we have Snatch Charm and Leftovers. Snatch Charm, look at your opponent's hand, choose a Pokemon you find there, put it to the bottom of your opponent's deck. It's okay disruption. I don't think this is like anything too crazy just because players can find their Pokemon so easily. It is like a very annoying card in GLC maybe, where Pokemon search is like less frequent, I guess. So if you search out for the stage 2 and you've only just evolved into the stage 1, your opponent could punish you by playing a Snap Charm and you lose to stage 2. So that could be pretty annoying, but honestly, I don't think this is going to be making any impact in Standard. And then Leftovers, if his Pokemon this card's attached to is your active, and then at the end of your turn, heal 20 damage from that Pokemon. So this is like permanent healing every turn, assuming there's still damage and assuming it stays active, but honestly, healing 20 is just super bad, to be honest. It's nothing great. It's okay maybe in a stall deck, but honestly, I don't think Leftovers will be seeing a lot of play. And the last card we have to take a look at today is Erica's Invitation. Your opponent reveals their hand, choose a basic Pokemon you find there and put it onto their bench, then switch that Pokemon into the active spot. So it's kind of like a Pokepuff from Steam Siege plus Boss's Orders in one, but of course this card relies on 3 things to go well. It relies on your opponent having a basic in their hand. It relies on your opponent having a basic Pokemon that you can actually KO with your active. And it also relies on you actually wanting to KO that basic in the first place. And there's going to be a lot of instances where you'd rather just hit the active as opposed to bringing in, some 60 HP basic or something that they were saving to try and bait this out. But honestly, a very strong supporter card in the right situation could definitely be pretty lethal. But honestly, I think most of the time your opponent is just going to want to put Pokemon into play regardless. Unless they're saving back, like, I don't know, Squawkabilly or something that could lose them the game. But either way, definitely a good card in Control, I would say. I think Control is probably the best place for Erica's Invitation. But yeah, it's been Power. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about the new reveals down below. And yeah, thank you for watching.